Hello and welcome to Midweek Momentum, your quick thought to help you move through the rest of this week with a little bit more clarity, confidence, and intention. And today, I am going to ask you a question about questions. Are you asking the right one? Are you solving the right problem? This came up in a really specific situation. So, for coaches out there, this is really going to resonate, but it's got general applicability. The Master Job Search Coach current cohort is several weeks into our action together, and it is so fun. So, side note and shameless plug, if you're interested in that, drop me a note and I'll tell you more about it. But one of the things that we explore very early on and a lot of depth there is asking thoughtful questions, asking the right questions to make sure that we are addressing the right problem for the client. And I think that this is generally applicable in many regards, because how often have you said, I need to do blank, but blank is more about fixing a hole than actually overhauling the whole problem, right? So in other words, when you don't ask the right questions, you could be solving the wrong problem, in that you could be addressing a symptom instead of the cause. And I find this is really frequent in coaching and career coaching specifically, because there is so much tactical action strategy type stuff that a lot of times we end up taking a client's statement of need or desire at face value without going deeper to think about, okay, what do they really want? What do they really need? And how do I best support that? And it all starts with asking better questions. And so, we're problem solvers. We're humans, right? That's really what we were wired to do, is solve problems in order to continue to survive and therefore evolve and exist. So we fall into the idea of asking, how do I fix this? How do I work harder? How do I make more money? How do I push through? But sometimes those can be the wrong question. Instead of, how do I get this done faster? What if the better question is, does it even need to be done? Or can I delegate it, right? If you're a leader, instead of how do I make the team perform better, what if you need to be asking yourself if everyone is actually clear on a goal or clear on what perform better may mean? Instead of how do I make this work, is this the right thing to be doing at all? And there's subtle differences. There can even be two sides of the same coin. However, in asking a more open-ended question that is less specific or narrow, you may end up discovering a better pathway into a more sustainable or more broad sweeping solution that you may not have at all. And, this comes back to the coaching world, where one of the most powerful things about coaching, and actually about leadership too, isn't having all the answers. It is being in tuned and emotionally intelligent enough to ask better and correct questions. And, as we think about how to be, humans on purpose in this very distracted world, I think could be a key and a human skill. Again, as we talk so much about the human skills that we should be growing, this is one of those ones that's hidden under the surface, but it's incredibly valuable in leadership, in coaching, maybe even in life. Because if you're a parent and your kid comes to you and says, hey, my leg hurts, you could say, okay, let's put a Band-Aid on it. Or you could ask where, so that you're not putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg. God help us. Please don't let your child get a broken leg. It's a ridiculous example of where taking things less at face value, what I call lingering at the top, and asking more questions help us in coaching, life, and leadership solve the right or the better or the more impactful or maybe even more transformational problem or challenge, right? It can also help us alleviate or set aside assumptions and biases. Also, you can start thinking about what questions you haven't asked, because sometimes the biggest aha moments aren't because somebody answered the question best. It's because you changed the question at hand. So I'm going to give you something really practical to try this week, whether it's in your team, whether it's at home, whether it's in your business, whether it's with a client, if you're a coach. When you find yourself stuck on a problem, instead of just hammering that with more and more tactics and more what ifs, step back and think about the question you're trying to answer so that you can think about whether or not there is a better question you could be asking instead. That one shift can completely change how you approach a situation, the perspective in which you look at things, and give you a new lens with which to evaluate a challenge or a problem or a dynamic that you are trying to work through. So, as you go into the rest of this week, don't take things at face value. Think about what question you should be asking versus the questions you typically ask, because progress doesn't always come from better answers. Sometimes, and more often than not, it comes from answering a better question. That's your midweek momentum. I'll see you next week.